Hey there everyone, it's GG Sober Sun. August 24th. When we saw our faults, we listed them. This is a quote from the Big Book. We placed them before us in black and white. We admitted our wrongs honestly and were willing to set these matters straight. We reviewed our fears thoroughly. We asked God to remove our fears, and we commenced to outgrow fear. Many of us needed an overhauling in regard to sex. We came to believe that sex powers were God-given and therefore good, if used properly. Sex is never to be used lightly or selfishly, nor is it to be despised or loathed. If sex is troublesome, we throw ourselves the harder into helping others, and so take our minds off ourselves. End quote. Am I facing my sex problems in the proper way? Wow. It went there. I don't recall reading that before, I guess. I have notes on the previous day about writing on paper the fourth step, but I don't recall this passage about the sex inventory. Probably because I wasn't ready to look at that kind of stuff, you know? And you know, pornography and that kind of stuff has been part of my story, and a lasting part of my story for a long time into recovery. And I have some recovery now, so maybe that's what it is. Maybe I can only now listen to it or hear it, or, you know, really let it sink in. So it is important, you know, to get out of self. I know when that old threadbare saying, idle hands is the devil's workshop, or the devil will find work for idle hands to do, that kind of thing. And it's pretty true. You know, if I have a lot of sitting around time and I'm feeling anxious, and a lot of alone time, you know, it used to be alone time when I was married with a family, you know. If I had alone time, I was surfing porn, you know. So, anyway, meditation for the day. Cling to the belief that all things are possible with God. If this belief is truly accepted, it is the ladder upon which a human soul can climb from the hollowest pit of despair to the sublimest heights of peace of mind. It is possible for God to change your way of living. When you see the change in another person through the grace of God, you cannot doubt that all things are possible in the lives of people through the strength that comes from faith in Him who rules us all. And, you know, He doesn't rule with an iron fist and say, you will do this and you will do that, you know. He lets us make our mistakes and learn our lessons, you know. That's the beautiful thing about it. And that last little bit there, who rules us all, it sounds very dictatorial and dogmatic, but it's not. It's definitely not like that, to the point where it almost seems sometimes like God is aloof. But God feels our pain, you know. I believe that with all my heart. God feels our pain, and it's almost like, and I didn't know this until my until I had children of my own, you know, that, like, you know, somebody mentioned in the meeting this morning, my home group meeting, about his daughter. You know, he was racing his daughter when she was like 4 years old on the bike, and he was letting her win and everything. And she looked over her shoulder at him to see how far ahead she was, and she crashed into a parked car, you know. And I was just like, oh, I winced when he said it, you know, but I knew it was coming, kind of thing. And you know, the guilt that he felt, and you know, because he felt like he caused that to happen, you know. But he definitely was there to pick her up and, you know, kiss her boo-boos and, you know, patch her up, kind of thing, and help her heal. And and I thought that was a beautiful metaphor, really beautiful example. I meant to thank him after the meeting. I don't know what happened, but anyway. It is, all things are possible, and I see it in other people, but sometimes it's also easy for me. And today we went over the second step in the 12 and 12, and it talked about the man who has faith, but it's just not working for his alcohol problem, right? And that, it's easy sometimes to believe it's, that God doesn't believe in me, in other words, I believe God can, but for whatever reason, he's not helping me with my alcohol problem, and in the really big book, the Apostle Paul talks about the thorn in his side, and he asked God 3 times to remove it, but he wouldn't. And Paul never talks about what that is, but people use that as an excuse that, well, I've asked God 3 times to remove this, and he hasn't. I got the Apostle Paul problem, and it's like, I don't know, I don't know why that's in the Bible or what it means, but I don't believe it means that we give up on asking, It may have been later on after the Apostle Paul wrote that epistle, as they call it, or letter to one of the churches. It may have been later on that God removed that thorn from Paul's side. But more than likely, and a lot of theologians believe that, what it was Paul's guilt and shame for persecuting and torturing and arresting Christians before he came to faith in Jesus. And so anyway, I digress. Prayer for the day. I pray that I may live expectantly. I pray that I may believe deeply that all things are possible with God. Yes, my fervent prayer that each day my faith grows and continues to grow to where I can demonstrate, I guess, it's pretty grandiose, but that I can demonstrate supernatural abilities, really, like I've heard of these miraculous things happening when, people, I've had it happen to where I've prayed for people and things happen. Obviously, I don't want to take any of the credit for it, but I want to be that type of conduit, and I'm not sure where that's coming from, but I think it's okay. It's okay to dream for things like that and pray for things like that God can use me supernaturally. And and know for sure that it comes from God, because if I think it's something uniquely special to me, that might feed my ego. And my ego is not my amigo. So that's what keeps me coming back. I love y'all. Keep coming back yourself. Look up. Aim up. Rise up.